Chapter 1. Letting go does not mean forgetting. A lot of people think letting go means forgetting, as if one day you wake up and the person, the pain, the hope, the memories, all of it is simply gone. As if the heart becomes quiet because nothing ever mattered. But real letting go does not work like that. Letting go does not mean erasing someone from your memory. It does not mean pretending you never cared. It does not mean calling something meaningless just because it ended. Sometimes letting go means admitting, yes, it happened. Yes, it mattered. Yes, it changed me, but I no longer want to live inside it. There is a difference between memory and attachment. Memory holds the fact. Attachment keeps pulling you back into a place where you no longer live. Memory can be quiet. Attachment argues, explains, fantasizes, waits, checks, hopes, and reopens the same wound over and over again. You can remember someone and no longer belong to them. You can miss them and still not return. You can admit that a story was important and still refuse to make it your whole life. Letting go is not ripping the past out by the roots. It is choosing to stop watering it with today's energy. It is choosing not to feed an old story with new explanations. Not to keep searching every memory for a hidden meaning. Not to believe that if you think about it long enough, you will finally find a version of the past that hurts less. The past does not change because you replay it. You only become more tired from watching it again. And sometimes letting go begins not because you forgot, but because you finally became exhausted from sacrificing the present to something that is no longer here. Chapter 2. Why it is so hard to let go. It is hard to let go not because you are weak, not because you are immature, not because you are too emotional. It is hard because very often we are not only holding on to a person, we are holding on to the meaning that person carried inside us. You might be holding on to hope, to an imagined future, to the version of yourself that existed around them, to the belief that if the story can be fixed, then the pain was not for nothing, to the thought that if they come back, explain, apologize, or finally understand, then you will feel whole again. But that is a trap. When you give someone the power to make you feel whole, you begin waiting not for love, but for yourself to return. You start living as if your peace depends on the past changing its mind. As if you can only breathe after one final explanation. As if your freedom must be granted by the same person who hurt you or left you confused. But life rarely closes chapters beautifully. Sometimes people leave without a real conversation. Sometimes you are not chosen and never get a reason. Sometimes someone hurts you and continues living as if nothing happened. Sometimes the person who felt like an entire world turns out to be just a person who did not know how to be careful with you. That hurts. But it hurts even more to wait for that person to give you permission to move on. Closure does not always come from outside. Sometimes you have to create it yourself. Not because the pain was not real, it was. Not because it did not matter, it did. But because you cannot leave your whole life open like a door someone might walk through if they ever changed their mind. Your life is not a waiting room, and your heart is not a room where the past gets to keep a key forever. Chapter 3. You are not only holding on to the person. Sometimes you think you cannot let go of a specific person, their voice, their habits, their messages, their warmth in the beginning, the way things felt before they became complicated. But often you are not only holding on to them, you are holding on to yourself around them. The version of you that believed, the version that opened up, the version that made plans, the version that thought something real had finally arrived. When a person leaves or changes, it can feel as if more than a person has disappeared. It can feel like an entire version of your life has collapsed. You are not only trying to get the person back, you are trying to get back the moment before you knew how the story would end. You want to return to the place where hope was still clean, where words still felt true, where the future still looked soft, where you were lighter. That is why letting go hurts so deeply. It is not only saying goodbye to someone else, it is saying goodbye to your own innocence, to the belief that if you love honestly, you will automatically be protected, to the hope that if something begins beautifully, it cannot end painfully. But it can. And that does not mean you were foolish. It means you were alive. Real letting go begins when you allow yourself to grieve not only the person, but the future that never happened. The conversations you will not have, the places you will not go together, the version of the relationship you built inside yourself that reality could not hold. That is grief. Quiet, real, heavy grief. Do not rush past it. You cannot truly release something you never allowed yourself to mourn. If you keep telling yourself, "I do not care," when you do care, the heart does not close the chapter. It simply waits for you to stop lying. Say it honestly. This hurts. I did not only lose a person, I lost the hope I attached to them. That honesty is where you begin returning to yourself. Chapter 4. Closure does not always come from the other person. Many people wait for closure, a final conversation, an honest explanation, an apology, a sentence that finally makes everything make sense. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes people return, talk, explain, apologize, or take responsibility. But often, life leaves us without that final scene. And that is where people get stuck. They think, "I cannot let go until I understand why, until I hear the answer, until I know whether it was real, until I know what I meant." until the other person admits what they did. But if your freedom depends on someone who is not meeting you with honesty, then they are still controlling your life, even through their absence. Closure is not always an answer. Sometimes closure is the decision to stop waiting for an answer from someone who was never able to speak honestly. Sometimes why does not heal you. Sometimes even if you hear the reason, it only hurts in a different way. Because your heart did not really want information. It wanted the story to be different. That is important to admit. You can receive an explanation and still not feel free. Because real closure is not when someone finally says the perfect thing.
Real closure is when you stop putting your life on hold until they do. You can say, I may never know everything. They may never explain. They may never apologize. They may never understand how much it hurt. But I still have the right to move forward. Not because the story ended beautifully, but because I no longer want an unfinished past to destroy my present. Sometimes closure is not a period placed by two people. Sometimes it is a door you close alone, quietly, painfully, for yourself. Chapter 5. Letting go means you stop arguing with reality. One of the hardest parts of letting go is accepting that we suffer not only from what happened, but from arguing with what happened. Inside, something keeps saying, this should not have happened. They should not have treated me this way. I should have said something else. They should have stayed. The story should have ended differently. And maybe, on a human level, you are right. Maybe it should not have hurt so much.
Maybe you did not deserve the silence, the betrayal, the confusion, or the coldness. Maybe someone truly did fail you. But reality has already happened, and as long as you keep fighting what already happened, you keep crashing into the same wall. You are not changing the past. You are exhausting yourself against it. Letting go does not mean saying, it was okay. It does not mean agreeing with how you were treated. It does not mean the pain was not real. Letting go means saying, this happened. I cannot rewrite the fact, but I can stop giving this fact my entire life. Those words can be very difficult. This happened. No decoration, no excuse, no attempt to make it spiritual right away. Just the fact. Because as long as your mind keeps living in, it should not have happened, part of you is still trying to live in an alternate world. A world where they acted differently, where you said the perfect thing, where the decision changed, where everything can still be fixed.
But your body lives here, now, today. And it becomes tired when your mind keeps returning to a life that no longer exists.
Letting go begins when you stop demanding that the past become different and start asking, what can I do with the version of me that is still here? Not the version that could have been. This one, tired, wounded, but still alive. Chapter 6. Do not turn pain into your identity. When pain lasts long enough, it can start to feel like part of who you are. It is no longer, I am hurting. It becomes, this is who I am. Not, I was left, but I am always left. Not, this did not work, but nothing ever works for me. Not, I lost someone, but I am someone who cannot be loved. That is when pain becomes dangerous. It stops being an experience and becomes a name. You begin introducing yourself to the world through the wound. You look at yourself through what happened to you. You explain your future through your past. You expect repetition. And the longer you live like that, the more impossible letting go feels. Because if you release the pain, who are you? Sometimes people hold onto pain not because it feels good, but because it feels familiar. It explains everything. Why you do not trust, why you do not try, why you avoid, why you close yourself, why you cannot move. Pain becomes a map, but you are more than what happened to you. You are more than the person who left, more than the mistake, more than the rejection, more than the betrayal, more than the period when you were not strong. Letting go does not mean erasing the pain. It means refusing to build your entire identity around it. You can say, this happened to me, but it is not all of me. You can say, I was wounded, but I am not only the wound. Pain narrows life. It makes the whole world the size of one person, one loss, one question, one why. Letting go slowly gives you space again. One thought that is not about the past. One evening without checking. One conversation where you do not say that name. One walk where the world becomes bigger than your pain. That is how you remember. There is life in me that did not end where that story ended. Chapter 7. Missing someone does not mean you should return. One of the biggest traps is believing that if you miss someone, it means you should go back. If you want to text, it must be a sign. If they appear in a dream, the connection must not be over. If your chest hurts, maybe you should try again. But longing is not always guidance. Sometimes it is simply the echo of attachment. You can miss someone who is not right for you. You can miss a place where you were hurt. You can miss a version of a relationship that barely existed in real life. You can miss warmth that appeared rarely but stayed in your memory strongly. Missing someone does not mean you should return. It means a part of you got used to them, their voice, their presence, the waiting, the drama, the hope, even the anxiety. Sometimes we do not miss happiness. We miss a familiar emotional rhythm, even if that rhythm was painful. So when you feel pulled back, do not rush to call it love. Ask yourself, do I miss the real person or who they were in their best moments? Do I want the relationship, or do I want the hope back? Do I want love, or do I simply want the emptiness to stop? If everything repeated the same way, could I survive that price again? These questions do not kill feelings, they bring honesty. And if it still hurts afterward, that is okay. Letting go does not mean you stop missing someone immediately. It means you learn not to obey every wave of longing. The wave comes, you feel it, you breathe. You do not step backward into a place that wounded you, and eventually the wave passes. Every wave you survive without returning is a small piece of freedom. Chapter 8. Do not idealize what was. When someone is gone, memory can become dangerous. It starts showing the best moments more brightly than the painful ones. You remember the laughter, the early conversations, the warmth, the rare tenderness, the way it could have been. And the anxiety, the silence, the waiting, the humiliation, the confusion, all of that becomes quieter. Then the past begins to look better than it was. You start wondering, maybe I exaggerated. Maybe there was more good than bad. Maybe I lost something incredible. Maybe if I had acted differently, everything would have worked. Sometimes there really was good. You do not have to deny that. But if you want to let go, you have to remember the whole story, not just the beautiful scenes. Remember not only the warmth, but how you felt in the coldness. Not only the words, but the actions that did not match them. Not only the closeness, but the nights you spent anxious. Not only what it could have been, but what it was most of the time. Memory edits. It cuts out the pain and leaves the music. But your life was not a movie trailer. It was the full experience. And if the full experience held more anxiety than peace, more waiting than mutual care, more pain than safety, you need honesty, not so you can hate the past, but so you do not return to an illusion. You do not have to turn the person into a monster, but you also do not have to turn them into a sacred loss. They were human, with good and bad, with warmth and coldness, with moments you can value and moments you do not want to repeat. Letting go means you stop worshipping the edited version of the past. Chapter 9. Letting go does not happen in one day. Sometimes people become angry with themselves because they cannot let go quickly. A week passes, a month, half a year, and something still hurts. You still remember. You still wonder. You still feel pulled backward. And then you begin judging yourself. Why am I still like this? Why do I still care? Why do I understand everything? but still feel this. But the heart is not a switch. You cannot press a button and stop feeling. You cannot command memory to go silent. You cannot force attachment to disappear just because the mind has already explained the situation. The mind may understand before the heart is ready. You may know, this is over. This is not good for me. This hurt me. I should not go back. And still, there may be longing. That does not mean you have made no progress. It means different parts of you heal at different speeds. Letting go is a process. Some days you feel free, and the next day you cry again. Some days you think it is over, and then one song brings back a wave. Some days you do not remember for hours, and then one street opens the old door. That is normal. Progress is not never hurting again. Progress is that the pain no longer controls every action. You can remember and not text, miss them and not return, cry and not destroy yourself, feel the wave and let it pass. Do not demand instant freedom from yourself. Freedom is built through repetition. Every time you choose the present instead of the old attachment, you create a new path inside yourself. At first, it is thin, almost invisible, then wider, then easier to walk. And one day you realize, I remember, but it no longer pulls me the same way. That is healing. Chapter 10. Stop replaying the scenarios. One reason we cannot let go is because the mind keeps replaying alternate scenarios. What if I said something different? What if I did not leave? What if I texted earlier? What if I was calmer? What if they understood? What if they came back? The mind searches for the moment where the story could have been saved, and sometimes there is something useful in that. We can learn from the past. We can see where we were silent, where we abandoned ourselves, where we ignored signs, where we acted from fear. But there is a difference between learning and torturing yourself. Learning helps you live differently. Torture puts you back in the same moment where nothing can be changed. If you already understood the lesson, you do not need to keep retaking the exam inside your head. Ask yourself honestly, am I thinking about this to understand? Or am I replaying it to punish myself? Very often we call it reflection when it is actually self-punishment. We return to the same mistake not to become wiser, but to hit ourselves again. We search for the perfect sentence, the perfect timing, the perfect version of ourselves. But the past does not become softer because you punish yourself harder. Sometimes you need to say, yes, I could have acted differently. Yes, I did not understand everything. Yes, I was not perfect. But back then, I had the strength, fear, awareness, and wounds I had. I cannot demand yesterday's version of me to have today's wisdom. That is not an excuse. That is mercy. And without mercy, letting go is almost impossible. Chapter 11. Let go of the version where everything could have been perfect. Often, the most painful thing is not what happened, but what could have happened. We suffer not only because of reality, but because of the imagined life that never arrived. You imagined conversations, mornings, healing, apologies, a future. The moment everything would finally make sense. The moment the pain would become only a hard chapter before a beautiful story. And when things ended, it was not only reality that died. An imagined world died too. That world is hard to release because inside it, everything is still possible. The person is better there. You are calmer there. The mistakes are fixed there. Love wins there. You do not lose there. But that world only exists inside you. And as long as you spend too much time there, your actual life waits outside. Letting go means saying goodbye not only to what happened, but to the future you already loved in your mind. That is sad. Deeply sad. You are not only saying goodbye to a person, you are saying goodbye to plans, hopes, imaginary scenes, and the version of life that would have made the pain easier to accept. Do not make yourself feel foolish for grieving something that never fully existed. The heart can attach not only to facts, but to possibilities. But possibility is not a promise, and if reality did not support that possibility again and again, then you have to stop living on credit from a future that did not come. Your real future can only begin when you release the imaginary one. Chapter 12. Do not wait to be understood. Very often, we cannot let go because we are waiting to be understood. We want the person to realize what they did, to see our pain, to say, "Now I understand how hard it was for you." To admit, "I hurt you. You were right. I was unfair." And when that never happens, an inner argument stays open. You keep explaining yourself in your head, choosing the perfect words, winning imaginary conversations, losing them, starting again. But real freedom often begins when you stop waiting to be understood by someone who did not want to listen. The person who hurt you may never understand. That does not mean your pain is not real. They may never admit it. That does not mean you imagined it. They may never apologize. That does not mean an apology was not deserved. Sometimes people do not understand not because you failed to explain, but because understanding would require responsibility. It is easier for them to say you are dramatic, easier to forget, easier to act like it was not serious. If you wait for their understanding, you may wait for years. Letting go means you stop making someone else's recognition the condition of your freedom. You can say, maybe they will never see it. Maybe they will never admit it. Maybe they will never understand. But I know what I felt. I know what it did to me. and that is enough for me to begin caring for myself. You do not need your pain to be officially approved by the person who caused it. You lived it, and you have the right to heal, even without their permission. Chapter 13. Let go of guilt. Sometimes we hold on to the past through guilt, not through love, not through hope, through the feeling that we ruined everything, that we could have done better, that we said the wrong thing, loved wrong, stayed too long, left too soon, failed somehow. Guilt can be useful when it leads to responsibility. If you hurt someone, acknowledge it. If you made a mistake, learn. If you can repair something, repair it. If an apology is appropriate, apologize. But guilt becomes a prison when nothing can be changed and you still pay for the past with your entire life. There is a difference between responsibility and self-punishment. Responsibility says, I see what happened and I will learn. Self-punishment says, I must suffer to prove I am sorry. But suffering does not change the past. It does not automatically heal the people you hurt. It does not make you better by itself. Sometimes, it only keeps you trapped in a place where you hate yourself, but do not grow. If you truly made a mistake, ask, what can I understand? What can I do differently? Where can I apologize honestly if it is right to do so? And where do I need to stop turning regret into a life sentence? You do not have to remain the person you were in your worst moment forever. Maybe you did not know. Maybe you were immature. Maybe you were scared. Maybe you made the wrong choice. That does not erase consequences. But it also does not mean you are forbidden to become better. Letting go of guilt does not mean saying, it was nothing. Sometimes it was something. Sometimes it hurt. Sometimes you were wrong. But letting go of guilt means you stop making punishment more important than transformation. Let the past become a teacher, not an executioner. Chapter 14. Let go of resentment. Resentment can hold very tightly, sometimes even tighter than love. Because resentment has energy, it has righteousness. It says, what happened to me was unfair, and I cannot simply move on as if it did not matter. And maybe it was unfair. Maybe someone used you, betrayed you, ignored you, left you without explanation, made you feel small. Resentment can initially feel like protection. It says, I remember. I will not let this be erased. I will not let anyone pretend my pain was nothing. At first, resentment may help you recognize, I did not deserve that. But if resentment stays too long, it becomes a chain. You think you are keeping the other person accountable, but really you are keeping them inside you. They may be gone, they may be living their life, and you are still carrying them in your thoughts, your chest, your nights, your conversations. So ask yourself, who is suffering from this resentment right now? Them or me.
Letting go of resentment does not mean excusing what happened. It does not mean the person was right. It does not mean trusting them again. It does not mean returning. It means you stop giving that person a permanent home inside your nervous system. You can remember the lesson without drinking poison every day. You can draw a boundary without staying on fire. You can say, I am not removing your responsibility. I am returning my life to myself. That is not a gift to them. It is a gift to you. Chapter 15. Your body has to let go too. We often think letting go happens only in the mind. Understand it, accept it, decide it, explain it. But the body remembers too. It remembers anxiety, waiting, tension, nights without sleep, checking the phone, tightness in the chest, a lump in the throat, weight in the stomach. Sometimes the mind understands, but the body still lives as if the danger is near. You can tell yourself, it is over, but your body still waits for the message, still reacts to a notification, still tightens at a familiar song, name, smell, place, or memory. That does not mean you are weak. It means your nervous system is still learning safety. So letting go must be physical too. Breathe, walk, sleep, eat, cry if you need to. Move, clean your space, go outside. Because pain does not live only in thoughts. It lives in muscles, habits, reactions, and expectation. Sometimes the best way to let go today is not to think deeper, but to help your body feel less threatened. Take a shower. Go to bed earlier. Turn off your phone for an hour. Drink water. Put your hand on your chest and say, I am here now. I do not have to solve everything tonight. I am coming back to myself. It may sound simple, but after a deep emotional attachment, simple things can save you. The past often holds you through the nervous system. And if you slowly teach your body that it is safe again, the heart stops waiting for the next hit. Letting go is not only understanding. Sometimes it is learning to breathe again. Chapter 16. Do not keep checking what hurts you. Some habits look small, but they keep pain alive. Checking their profile, seeing whether they are online, rereading old messages, searching for meaning in a photo, listening to the song that opens everything again, asking about them through other people. You tell yourself, I will just look once. But it is not just once. Every check is a small return to the attachment. You give the past another chance to enter your nervous system. You open the door again. You give the wound new air. You cannot truly let go while checking every day whether your pain is still alive. Sometimes you do not need a dramatic inner breakthrough. You need an external boundary. Do not look. Do not reread.
Do not search. Do not ask. Do not create new reasons for old pain. That is not weakness. It is self-protection. When a wound is healing, you do not touch it every 10 minutes to see if it is closed.
If you do, it cannot close. It needs time, protection, and quiet. The heart is the same. If you want to let go, stop feeding the attachment new information. Do not give your brain new images to analyze. Do not give hope new evidence. Do not let yourself live as if you are monitoring someone who should no longer control your state. At first, the pull will be strong. Your hand will reach for the phone. A thought will say, "Just once, it is harmless." But the danger is not one time. The danger is that one time pulls you back into the cycle. Every time you do not check, you are not doing nothing. You are choosing yourself. Chapter 17. Letting go means returning your attention to yourself. Where there was deep attachment, almost all attention can go toward one person or one story. What are they thinking? Do they regret it? Do they miss me? Will they return? Was it real? What does their silence mean? What does that post mean? What does that look mean? And your own life becomes background. You work, speak, walk, smile. But a part of you is still sitting in the old room, waiting for news from the past. Letting go is returning your attention home. Not all at once, in small pieces. Return your attention to your body. What am I feeling right now? Return it to your room. What is around me? Return it to your day. What needs to be done today? Return it to your dreams. What do I want if this person is no longer the center? Return it to yourself. Who am I outside this story? At first, it may feel empty. When you have lived around pain for a long time, normal life can feel almost boring. But it is not always boredom. Sometimes it is the absence of emotional fire. And you have to get used to that. Attention is life. Where you place it, your energy flows. If you give all attention to the past stays powerful. If you return attention to the present slowly becomes alive again. Not because the past disappeared, because it stopped receiving all your energy. Do one thing today, not to forget, but to remember yourself. Eat something, go outside, clean one small space, call someone calm, listen to music that does not reopen the wound. Do something small and alive. That is how attention returns, and with it, you return. Chapter 18. Let go of control. We often hold on because we are trying to control what cannot be controlled. Another person's feelings, their decisions, their memory of us, their regret, their return, their apology, their understanding. You want them to understand exactly the way you need, to remember the right things, to value you at the right time, to prove that you mattered.
to bring justice in a form you can recognize. But you cannot control another person's inner world, and that hurts. Sometimes it feels like if you stop trying to control it, you become powerless. But letting go teaches another kind of strength, recognizing the limits of your influence. You cannot make someone love you, but you can stop begging. You cannot make someone understand, but you can stop explaining to someone who refuses to listen. You cannot change the past, but you can change how often you return to it. You cannot control someone's memory of you, but you can stop building your worth on that memory. Control feels like safety, but when you try to control the impossible, it becomes torture. Letting go means saying, I return to what belongs to me, and I release what does not. My choices belong to me, my boundaries, my healing, my honesty, my next step. But another person's soul does not belong to me. And as long as I try to live inside someone else's soul, I am not living inside my own. That acceptance is difficult, but there is freedom in it. Chapter 19. Let go of the old version of yourself. Sometimes you do not only need to let go of a person, you need to let go of the old version of you. The one who tolerated too much, the one who kept returning, the one who believed words without actions, the one who stayed silent, the one who waited too long, the one who did not see what now seems obvious. We often become angry at that old version of ourselves. How could you? Why did you not leave sooner? Why did you believe? Why did you write? Why did you stay? Why did you not understand? But that version of you was not stupid. They were wounded, afraid, hopeful, maybe lonely, maybe hungry for love. Maybe they did not know how to do anything else. Maybe they held on to the little warmth they received because, at the time, it felt like the only light. If you want to truly let go, you have to stop hating yourself for the way you survived. Yes, you can recognize mistakes. Yes, you can see where you abandoned yourself. Yes, you can say, I do not want to live that way again. But you cannot heal while constantly despising the version of you who went through the pain. Try looking at them more gently. They did not know everything you know now. They did not have your current clarity. They were inside the situation, not outside it. Maybe they were doing the best they could, even if that best now looks weak to you. Letting go of the old version of yourself means saying, I see how hard it was for you. I understand why you held on. I will not live the same way anymore. But I will not hate you for not knowing another way. That is a powerful moment. Because as long as you fight your past self, part of you remains there. When you stop hating them, you can finally bring them home. Chapter 20. Do not use a new person as painkiller. When you are hurting, it is natural to want to fill the emptiness quickly with a new person, new attention, new messages, new admiration. Something that proves you are still wanted, still attractive, still alive. And that is understandable. After loss, you want evidence that life is not over. But if you enter something new from panic rather than freedom, you may carry old pain into a new story. You may start looking for medicine instead of a person. You may expect someone new to close a wound they did not create, to prove you are worthy, to silence loneliness, to help you not think. But a person should not become a bandage for a wound you are afraid to look at. This does not mean you cannot meet people, talk, flirt, or open yourself again. You can. Sometimes new people do bring life back. But you need honesty. Ask yourself, am I choosing this person? Or am I running from emptiness? Do I want to know them? Or do I want to prove something to the past? Am I present? Or do I want to be rescued? Without honesty, you can create new pain for yourself and someone else. Letting go means giving yourself time not to use people as painkillers. First, return to yourself at least a little. So one day, you can choose someone not from hunger, but from real interest. Not because you are terrified of being alone, but because being around them genuinely feels right. New love should not be an escape from old love. It should be a meeting. And you can only meet someone when you are at least partly present in yourself. Chapter 21. You do not have to prove you have let go. Sometimes after loss, people try to prove they have let go. They act like they do not care, laugh louder, post things deliberately, show that they are happy, try to look strong, cold, untouchable. But if you need to prove that you have let go, a part of you may still be talking to the past. You still want them to see, to regret, to understand, to think, they are better without me. I lost them. That is not freedom. It is still connection, just in a different form. Re-letting go often does not look impressive. Nobody may notice it. You simply stop performing for someone who is no longer in your life. You stop living as a response to their imagined gaze. You stop choosing words, clothes, posts, and decisions as messages to the past. You begin living not to prove, not so they regret it, not so they see, but simply because this is your life. That is quiet. You stop asking in your mind, what would they think? Will they see? Will they feel something? And you begin asking, does this fit me? Do I need this? Do I want this? You do not have to prove you have let go. Live. One day, it will become visible. Not through loud gestures, but through the fact that the past is no longer the main audience of your life. Chapter 22. Letting go does not mean closing yourself to love. After being hurt, it is easy to say, never again, never trust,
never open up, never love that deeply, never let anyone close enough to hurt you. At first, that may feel like strength, but often it is fear wearing armor. Letting go of the past should not turn you into a closed person. If it does, the past still won. It simply changed form. It is no longer longing. It became a wall. You can become more careful. That is healthy. You can trust more slowly. You can pay more attention to actions. You can notice inconsistency sooner. You can stop giving yourself completely to someone who has not shown care. But you do not have to kill your ability to love. Your depth was not the mistake. Your tenderness was not the weakness. Your ability to attach was not the curse. It simply needs boundaries beside it now. Letting go does not mean saying, "I will never feel again." It means saying, "I will feel, but I will not abandon myself. I will love, but I will not disappear. I will open up, but not to everyone and not immediately. I will believe, but not in words without actions. I will not turn past pain into a lifelong ban on future closeness." A heart closed forever is not protected. It is lonely. Protection is not a wall with no doors. Protection is a door with a lock, and the key is no longer left with everyone who passes by. Chapter 23. People may never become who you saw in them. Sometimes the hardest thing to release is not what someone did, but the realization that they were not who you believed they were. You believed in their depth, their honesty, their ability to care. You saw their potential, their light, the version of them that could have been. And maybe some of it was real, but a person is not only potential. A person is the choices they make, the behavior they repeat, the responsibility they take or avoid, the way they treat you when things are uncomfortable, inconvenient, frightening, or difficult. We often fall in love with potential, with who someone could become, with rare, warm moments, with flashes of tenderness. And then we suffer, because the real person does not live consistently at that level. Letting go means you stop loving only the possibility and start seeing the reality. Not with contempt, with honesty. Yes, there was good. Yes, I saw it. No, I did not invent everything, but goodness that appears rarely and disappears when it is needed most cannot be the foundation of a peaceful life. Someone can have depth and still not be ready. They can be kind sometimes and still hurt you through repeated behavior. They can love in their own limited way and still not love in a way that is safe for you. That hurts. Because then you are not letting go of a monster. You are letting go of a complicated human being. Someone with something real, but not enough. And that can be the hardest kind of goodbye. But mature love can say, "I can see the good in you," and still refuse to live with the parts of you that keep hurting me. Chapter 24. How you know you are really letting go. Letting go does not always feel like happiness. Sometimes it feels like tired peace, like silence after a long inner war, like less desire to check, less tension in the body, more ability to live a day without returning to the same thought every 10 minutes. You know you are letting go when the memory arrives but no longer commands you, when the name does not burn as much, when you can admit the good without wanting to return, when you can admit the bad without wanting revenge, when you no longer need to prove who was right, when you stop waiting for the message, but also stop building your whole pride around, I will never answer. When the future becomes your territory, not a performance for the past. Letting go is not always instant joy. Sometimes it is simply more air, a little more space inside, a little less tightness, a little less dependence on what someone else is doing, a little more curiosity about yourself, a little more presence. Do not wait for one cinematic moment where you suddenly become completely free. Freedom often comes in small doses. 5 minutes, then an hour, then an evening, then a day. Then a memory returns, but you recover faster. One day you notice, before, this thought would have destroyed my whole day. Now it just passed through me. That is a sign, not that you became stone, but that you became yours again. Chapter 25. A practice for letting go before sleep. Here is a small practice, not a magical ritual, just an honest conversation with yourself. Imagine standing in a dark room. In your hands is a rope. At the other end is the person, the situation, the memory, the hope, the guilt, the resentment, whatever you have been holding. You are tired, your hands ache, your shoulders are tense, but you still hold on because it feels like if you let go, everything becomes truly over, and maybe something will end. The illusion of control, the hope for another version of the past, the familiar pain, the waiting. But when your hands open, they also become free. You can touch your own life again. Say to yourself slowly, I admit this mattered. I admit this hurt. I admit I wanted a different ending. I admit part of me is still holding on, but I no longer want my life to stay paused inside what already happened. I let go not because I do not care. I let go because I have started caring about myself. I do not know what comes next, but I know I do not want to live forever inside this memory. Then imagine that you do not cut the rope violently. You simply open your fingers, slowly, carefully, with pain, but without violence toward yourself. And if your fingers close again, that is okay. Tomorrow you try again. Letting go is not one gesture. It is a new habit of the soul. Opening your hand
around what should no longer control your life. Chapter 26. Final. You are not losing love, you are returning to yourself. Maybe letting go feels like losing, as if stopping the waiting means everything was for nothing, as if thinking less means betraying what you felt, as if releasing hope means the story finally disappears. But sometimes letting go is not losing love. It is stopping the loss of yourself. You have already lost enough energy, enough nights, enough inner space, enough peace, enough days that could have belonged to you but became extensions of an old story. The question is not whether you loved enough. You did, maybe too long. Maybe too honestly in a place where honesty was not returned. Maybe too patiently. Maybe too alone. But now love for the past has to make room for care for the present. Letting go means saying, I do not deny what happened. I do not erase the memory. I do not pretend it did not hurt. But I no longer give it the right to rule my life. I take back my attention, my energy, my body, my mornings, my evenings, my future, my voice, my heart. I do not know how long healing will take, but I will not choose the wound as my home every day. I can miss and still walk. I can remember and not return. I can cry and not text. I can love what was and still admit that it ended. I can be grateful for the good and honest about the pain. I cannot hate someone and still choose distance. I can have no final answer and still keep living. And when a memory comes back, I do not have to fight it. I can say, I see you. You are part of my story, but you are not my whole life anymore. And I am returning. Not quickly, not perfectly, but I am returning to myself, to my breath, to my path, to the people who have not arrived yet, to the days that are still waiting, to a life that did not end where that story ended. Because real letting go is not disappearing from pain. It is passing through it and one day understanding, I am still here. I survived. I became deeper. I became more honest. And now I choose not to hold on to what has gone. I choose to hold myself quietly, firmly, for real. I let go not because I do not care. I let go because I have started caring about myself. I do not have to forget in order to move forward. I do not have to hate in order to close the door. I do not need an explanation in order to begin living. I do not need an apology in order to heal. I do not have to return to the place where I was hurt. I can miss someone and still choose myself. I can remember and not check. I can love and not humiliate myself. I can cry and not destroy myself. I can admit that it mattered and still admit that it is over. I do not have to make pain my home. I do not have to turn the past into my destiny. I do not have to spend my whole life waiting for someone who does not come. I do not have to keep the door open just because it was once warm there. I can close it calmly, without hatred, without revenge, without proof, simply because I need to live. I return my attention to myself. I return my breath to myself. I return my mornings to myself. I return my body to myself. I return my silence to myself. I return my right to keep going imperfectly. If it hurts again tomorrow, I will not call that failure. If I feel pulled backward again, I will not call myself weak. If I remember again, I will not be angry at memory. I will simply choose myself again, again and again. Because letting go is not one moment. It is a road, and I am already on it, slowly, quietly, honestly, for real.